No cameras, no crowd. Only the clinical buzz of overhead courtroom lighting and one shaking box of tissues on the witness stand. Christine Brown remained motionless, arms folded over a spare folder labeled Confidential Ysabel Brown. Her knuckles were pale, her face expressionless, but the maelstrom within her eyes contradicted all. Opposite her, Kody Brown relaxed back in his chair as if he weren't the man on trial, as if he weren't the dad whose silence had been questioned. He gazed at the ceiling, tapping his foot, arms crossed like a man too confident to even blink. Behind him, Robyn sat combed, quiet, mouth pursed, eyes with a look of calculation. The judge said nothing. He was thumbing through papers, his face altering ever so subtly with every page. He came to a certain point, paused, and took off his glasses. "Mrs. Brown," he said quietly, "are you ready to testify regarding your daughter's surgical history?" Christine's throat constricted. She blinked slowly, as if defending herself. "Yes, Your Honor," she breathed. The courtroom held its breath. No journalists today. This wasn't a case of money. This wasn't about property. This was about something much more intimate. This was about Ysabel, her daughter, her spine, her pain, her father's decision to turn away from it all. What Christine was about to expose wasn't merely medical, it was moral. And once the truth was heard by the courtroom would never look at Kody in the same way again. This wasn't about receipts. This was concerning regret, and the choice of a father that split a family in two. Christine leaned forward and opened the folder. Not suddenly, not theatrically, just with the soft determination of a woman who had finally ceased to ask leave to speak the truth. "Those are the records," she spoke quietly, "from Isabelle's spinal surgery in September 2020. These indicate full payment history, lack of co-signature, and lack of Kody." The judge nodded but said nothing. Instead, he allowed the significance of the moment to hover in the air like a cloud of smoke. Kody shifted. Not a great deal, just a tiny twitch of his jaw, but Christine noticed that familiar defensiveness, that refusal to endure hardship, that tired evasion. She went on. "Your Honor, this isn't about insurance. It is about abandonment." She spoke with a slight crack in her voice. Not one of performance, but recollection. "I pleaded with him to come. His daughter pleaded with him to come, and he told us it wasn't safe. That COVID was too dangerous, but we all watched what followed. We all understand what he did instead." The judge inclined towards her. "And what did he decide, Mrs. Brown?" Christine didn't respond immediately. She grabbed the next page from the folder, a printed screenshot, a photo with a timestamp. He attended Robyn's son's football practice. 2 days later, no mask, no hesitation, no back problems there. A soft gasp arose from someone at the back. Perhaps Meri, perhaps Janelle. Christine didn't glance to see, because finally the court was witnessing the truth. Not rumor, not opinion, just fact. And the fact was, when his daughter needed him most, Kody didn't show up. And now that absence was proof. The judge sat silently for a moment. He flipped the page deliberately, looking at the timestamp on the printed screenshot. The 17th of September 2024, 13 p.m. Kody, his arms crossed like nothing in the world had demanded more from him today, smiled next to Robyn and her children, a crowded field, stretching out before him. Christine's hands shook as she delivered the paper to the bailiff. "Your Honor," she spoke softly, "I was at the hospital with Ysabel, by myself. She was crying. She asked me over and over where her father was, and I lied. I explained to her he wanted to be there but couldn't. She stopped. That wasn't true. He elected not to be." Kody let out a deep breath and sat forward. "I didn't leave her. The pandemic shifted the rules for all of us." But his words ricocheted off the silence. The judge placed the photo in his hand and looked from it to Kody. "Mr. Brown," he said, "matter of factly, is that you?" Kody nodded reluctantly, then said, "It happened outside. There was no one vulnerable. I had to make a decision." Christine's eyes blazed. She was 17. She suffered scoliosis. She was on traction. She was afraid. She wanted to see her father, and you called for comfort, not compassion. The judge looked again at Christine. "Did you let Mr. Brown know the surgical date in advance?" Christine opened a calendar printout. Yes, weeks in advance, I pleaded with him to be there for her. I promised to quarantine. I promised to pay out of pocket. He refused. And when the anesthesia dissipated, the sole parent waiting for Ysabel was the one Kody had already emotionally abandoned. The courtroom was still in stasis. Robyn did not utter a word. She did not flinch. She sat rigidly still, as if a woman who did not know how close. The flames had come to her own feet. The judge gestured for the affidavit Christine had mentioned. The clerk produced it. A signed statement by Ysabel's orthopedic surgeon indicating that only one parent was there during the hospitalization, and that no other family visitors had made any requests for access. Christine lowered her head while the judge read it out. The minor patient demonstrated disappointment, frustration, and emotional distress at the lack of her father, who was reported to have been notified several times of her date of operation. The judge paused. Mrs. Brown, is this what you say caused long-term trauma in the form of emotional damage? Christine nodded. Not only for Isabelle, Your Honor, for me, for our family. For all the people who saw him smile on a football field as our daughter learned to breathe again through post-op agony. I said to myself it was all about germs. It wasn't. It was about priorities. The judge jotted something on the paper and then sat back. We'll move forward with Exhibit C. But let me be clear, Mrs. Brown. What you are saying is not simply about custody. It is not simply about co-parenting conflicts. This is about neglect, emotional neglect. And if it were proven to be intentional, it could determine future division of property and custody for future minors. Kody's head jerked around. That is not what this is about, he growled. This is a smear campaign. But Christine didn't shout. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than rage. She turned slowly toward Kody and whispered just loud enough for the mic to catch. You're not the victim here, Kody. Isabelle is. The judge didn't respond to Kody's outburst. He didn't need to. The silence in the courtroom already did the work of reprimanding him. Instead, the judge turned to Christine, his eyes sharper now, the tone colder. Do you have further evidence to corroborate your argument that Mr. Brown knew of the emotional distress he caused prior to and subsequent to the procedure? Christine nodded. She pulled out a printed chain of emails. Subject line, Ysabel's surgery final confirmation. From the folder. She put it on the desk next to the court clerk. Those were our last 3 conversations before surgery, she explained, voice still shaking but controlled. In them, I reminded him of the date. I told him how frightened she was, he responded once. That is all. The judge waved it in to be read into the record. Christine did not waver. Her lawyer stood, pushed his glasses up, and read aloud. Christine, we are booked for the 16th of September, St. Luke's Hospital, check. In at 6:45 a.m., Ysabel is worried. She constantly asks if you are going to come. Please think it through, Kody. I already said it to you. The risks are just too great. You are acting on emotion. I can't risk Robyn's kids. Let me know what happens. That was all. One sentence. One line, one moment in time that spoke a whole story. Because sometimes the worst betrayals aren't thunderous. They're whispers, one-line messages, missed visits, and the gap on the side of a hospital bed. Christine glanced down. Her hands again hovered over the folder as if it still required safeguarding. She cried herself to sleep last night, she whispered. I said it would all be fine, that perhaps you'd change your mind. And when we got up that morning and went to the hospital, she asked me not to say your name to the nurses. She said, Don't tell them my dad didn't visit, just tell them he is home watching. Her voice cracked then, burst wide open under the burden of the sentence. She was trying to shield you, Kody, while you were shielding your reputation. Kody rolled his eyes. This is manipulation, he muttered. You're trying to use her pain to punish me. The judge didn't blink. No, Mr. Brown, he said firmly. She's using her daughter's pain to show the court a pattern, and you've already helped her do it. Christine took a deep breath and turned the next page in the folder. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Ysabel's personal letter. She wrote it for this moment. It is not a show. It is not practiced. She just wanted to be heard. The judge nodded. The courtroom leaned in. Meri fidgeted in her seat. Janelle sat as still as a statue. Even Robyn unfolded her arms. Christine opened the envelope and started reading. Dear Judge, my name is Ysabel Brown. I've had spinal surgery in 2020. It was the most terrifying thing that I have ever done. I begged my dad to come. I pleaded with him over the phone in messages. I even asked Robyn to make him tell him. He declined. I spent 8 days in recovery with back drains and stitches I couldn't see, and I wept. Not because it hurt, but because I knew he chose something else. I want to forgive him, but I'm still waiting to hear I'm sorry. Christine paused, wiped a tear from her cheek, and looked directly at Kody. She's still waiting, Kody, and so am I. For a full 5 seconds, there was no sound but the low hum of courtroom lights and the soft rustle of Ysabel's handwritten letter as Christine folded it back into the envelope. Kody didn't speak for once. The man who had established his identity in terms of being the voice of the family was totally, entirely, and visibly without voice. The judge clicked his pen against the bench, slowly, deliberately, before he said, "The court accepts the letter as emotional testimony. Although not conclusive by itself, the course of conduct that it describes, corroborated by medical records and electronic mail, will be considered in the final decision." Christine shook her head, eyes glassy, throat constricted. Her attorney sat beside her, unmoving. There was nothing to argue anymore, only truth to grasp with the open hands. Kody's attorney hunched forward and whispered something drastic in his ear. Kody shook his head. Then at last he stood up. "Your Honor," he cleared his throat with a forced calm. "With all due respect, the whole direction of this is emotionally manipulative. I didn't go to the hospital because I stuck to the protocols we all decided on. It wasn't favoritism, it was caution. Christine's spinning this because she is upset I didn't show up. But that doesn't mean I didn't care." Christine slowly turned her head toward him, and when she spoke, her voice didn't shake. It sliced. "You didn't even call her the day of the surgery, Kody. Not even once. She just kept checking her phone, waiting. You took a picture on your Instagram page. Robyn's living room. Watching football." Robyn's shoulders tightened. She did not look up. The judge inquired, "Is this post still active?" Christine gave him another printed document. Stamped, dated, caption says, "Chill Sunday with the crew. Family first, always." The judge's lips formed a thin line, "Family first." Perhaps that is the most ironic caption submitted into evidence this week. You can't say you are helping a family and leave behind the only member who needed you most, and hope a courtroom won't pay attention. Meri shifted forward a little now, gaze fixed on the paper in the judge's hand. The tension in the room was stifling, not because it was warm, but because it was cold. No one leaped to defend Kody. Not Janelle, not even Robyn. The silence spoke loudly enough. The judge took a breath and posed Christine one last question for the session. "Mrs. Brown, what are you requesting this court to conclude from these facts?" Christine didn't flinch. "That this isn't about one surgery. It is about a father who appears when it is convenient, and then vanishes when it is not. It is about years of hearing we were a priority, only to find out we were an afterthought. I am requesting this court to see that pattern, not only for custody, but for closure." Kody jumped in. "Closure? That is what this is. A public dismantling for closure?" Christine glared at him. "Publicized it yourself, the day you installed a camera in our living room and announced to the world that you were the ideal father. Undefined and merely setting the record straight." The judge rocked back in his chair. "Undefined, we will resume with testimony from the medical professional on record, along with the history of financial support, or lack thereof. During the recovery period, undefined court is in recess until 9 a.m. undefined tomorrow." The gavel struck firmly. Undefined, but the emotional burden didn't ease. Christine did not get up immediately. Faye unused, she simply sat there, hand on the envelope, eyes far away. Faye unused strode out stiffly. Robyn behind him in silence. Faye undiazed. As the courtroom cleared, Meri walked towards her slowly and whispered, "She wasn't alone waiting for you. You know, Faye unused, we all were." The next day, the courtroom doors swung open to a strange tension. No reporters were permitted, but no such prohibition was able to quiet the gossip. Christine's testimony had awakened something more profound than mere legal interest. It had uncovered a wound the whole sister-wives family had worked to cover, over with silence. The judge came quietly, his gown more ponderous than yesterday, as if the import of what had been unmasked had accompanied him home. Christine had the same folder on her desk, though her hands now lay on top of it like something blessed, something wounded. Kody arrived 10 minutes late. No apology, no haste, only arrogance masquerading as insouciance. Robyn came in behind him, her eyes behind tinted glasses, even indoors. Janelle was already in her seat. Meri came in last and sat nearer to Christine than anyone anticipated. The change in seating wasn't overlooked. The judge pushed up his glasses. Court will continue with sworn testimony of Dr. Hannah Klein, Ysabel Brown's orthopedic attending surgeon. The screen to the side of the bench burst into life. A Zoom connection opened, and a composed professional woman in a white lab coat materialized on screen. "Dr. Klein, you are now sworn in," the court clerk declared. The doctor nodded and leaned forward. "Dr. Klein," the judge started, "can you verify that you were the operating surgeon for Ysabel Brown during her spinal fusion surgery on the 16th of September 2020? "Yes, Your Honor," she answered. "I was the chief surgeon and responsible for all pre-op and post-op tests." Christine's attorney stood. "Doctor, can you inform the court if Mr. Brown's absence had any documented effect on the patient's recovery or emotional state while she was hospitalized?" Dr. Klein nodded. "Yes. It was noted in several of the nursing notes and my own patient charts. Ysabel was showing heightened emotional distress during the initial 48 hours. She asked multiple times to see her father and was confused regarding his absence. She felt forgotten, though she had wonderful support from her mother." The room was quiet. Kody sat back in his chair, jaw clenched. The doctor went on. "She wasn't merely recovering physically. She was sorting through a type of emotional abandonment that affected her recovery. She was tough but isolated. At one point, she asked if her father thought she wasn't worth the risk." Christine closed her eyes. "You can't claim to love your children while making them feel disposable, and think a medical record won't one day testify against you." The judge leaned forward. "Dr. Klein, in your professional opinion, would the presence of Mr. Brown have significantly improved a patient's psychological condition during recovery?" "Absolutely," she said without hesitation. "In situations like this, parental presence isn't emotional, it is clinical. It decreases cortisol, accelerates healing, and enhances compliance. Her pain management was compromised due to her anxiety. She needed him there, and he wasn't." Kody laughed. "That is conjecture." The judge interjected. "That is expert opinion, Mr. Brown. You'll have a chance to respond later." The doctor added, "I'd like to note that no calls, video messages, or voice memos were ever delivered during her stay. It was silence. That's what broke her most." Christine's hand covered her mouth, trembling now. "She still talks about it," she whispered. "Still wonders why you didn't even say good luck." Kody did not speak. The judge addressed Dr. Klein and concluded the video call. "Let the record show that medical testimony corroborates emotional distress consistent with parental absence during pediatric surgery." He glared straight at Kody. "And let the court also acknowledge that no documented attempt was made to connect digitally, virtually, or verbally with the minor patient before, during, or after said surgery." Christine's lawyer added one final note. "We have one more piece of evidence, Your Honor, submitted today. Financial records for Ysabel's surgery expenses, 100% of which were covered by Christine Brown." He handed the judge a folder. "Mr. Brown has no record of contribution." The judge arched an eyebrow. "No post-operative care. No insurance supplement?" "No, Your Honor. Not a single cent." Christine crossed her arms. "He told me that if I insisted on going through with it despite his objections, I should pay for it myself." The courtroom stood stock still. The silence at the moment wasn't merely cold, it was heartless. Even the judge was quiet for a very long moment. He clutched the folder of financials in his hands, as if it had just realigned the entire burden of the case. The figures didn't prevaricate. Line for line, Christine's name alone: hospital charges, anesthesiology fees, physical therapy fees, travel costs, hotel rooms, meals for her daughter, even the post, op back support that insurance denied. Christine had paid every cent. Kody's name was absent, not a copay, not a reimbursement, anything. The judge slowly placed the folder on the bench and gazed at Kody. "Do you contest these figures, Mr. Brown?" Kody fidgeted in his chair. I didn't know she needed assistance. She made it pretty clear that she was managing. I thought she wanted control. Christine didn't even bat an eyelash this time. You didn't ask, she replied gently. You didn't check. You just walked away and assumed I'd figure it out. And I did. But Isabelle picked up on it. She stared straight into him now. You are not just missing on paper, Kody. You were gone in the flesh, in spirit, in wallet, in heart. Robyn whispered something in Kody's ear, but he did not stir. His jaw was set, the silence of the courtroom encasing him like a personal verdict. Christine took out a last page. This is my credit card statement. $27,000 in medical-related charges over the course of 3 months. I called your name each time I opened another bill. You never replied. Because it is not so much the absence that hurts. It is the indifference, and the receipts don't only reveal figures, they reveal priorities. The judge raised an eyebrow, furrowed brow. And at no time, Mr. Brown, did you ever ask how much it was going to cost your daughter to recover? Kody folded his arms. Christine kept things separate. She treated me like I didn't deserve to be part of it. Christine's voice rose just high enough to rattle. You didn't call to get involved. You didn't call to know if she cried at night. You didn't call to know how I was sleeping on a pull-out couch beside her bed. You didn't even call to ask how she was recovering. I waited for your calls. I waited for your messages. Nothing. Kody's mouth dropped open, but he did not say anything. The judge went on, speaking quietly. The court recognizes a pattern: emotional neglect, financial abandonment, and failure to engage in basic post-surgical care communication. This isn't about mistakes. This is about choice. Christine sat up straighter now. That's all I've been trying to say. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was abandonment with a smile, a televised one. And while I stood there with my daughter's hand, hurting, Kody stood there with a camera, playing the part of devoted patriarch. And we were the footnotes. Robyn finally got her words out. Your Honor, may I ask something? Everyone turned to her. Kody remained behind because we had high-risk people in our house. If he became ill, we'd all be at risk. It wasn't personal. Christine didn't wait to respond. It is always personal when your daughter is in a hospital bed and you decide on a football field, when you appear for all the things other than the hard things, when you are only a father when it is convenient. Robyn bowed her head. The judge held up a hand. This is no longer about COVID protocol. This is about character, and the court has had enough of that. He rose to his feet. We'll reconvene after lunch, at which point I shall render interim findings on Mr. Brown's parenting behavior. The gavel didn't have to come down. The courtroom already had. Christine stood deliberately, clutching her folder as armor. Janelle stood beside her. Meri stood next, and Robyn. She remained seated, silent, white, inscrutable. As for Kody, he sat still, staring at nothing, as if suddenly even he didn't know the kind of man he was acting like anymore. The air in the room was more subdued when the court resumed after lunch, but things had changed that no one could pretend to ignore. Christine's morning testimony still weighed heavily in the air, immovable and unblinking, like fog that cannot be blown away. The judge returned with a binder of notes and a face devoid of opinion. But everyone present knew judgment was imminent. Christine herself sat composed, no longer shaking, her face serene in that particular woman's way of containing decades of pain. Kody, however, appeared agitated. His fingers drummed the arm of his chair. His lips spoke without voice. His confidence had given way to something more raw, resentment. Robyn sat at his side like a statue. She hadn't uttered a word since her failed defense that morning. Janelle, in the corner of the room, nodded. Christine silently. Meri remained quiet. She hadn't looked away from Kody all morning. The judge cleared his throat. Before I read my first findings, I want the record to show that what we're witnessing today is not simply a squabble between former spouses. It is a picture of decades, long systemic neglect, drawn not in accusations but in receipts, medical records, and silence. He paused. This court finds the testimony of Christine Brown to be consistent, corroborated, and given without malice. Her state of mind is consistent with the on-the-record truth of both her financial distress and her child's solo recovery from medicine. Her allegations of emotional absence have been attested by an attending doctor, independent documents, and the minor patient herself. Kody breathed out through his nostrils, like a man steeling himself for a blow. But the judge wasn't done, because when the truth arrives looking like spreadsheets and signed letters, even the most charming disguise can't conceal what lies beneath. "Mr. Brown," the judge said, staring him down, "your case is built on protocol, assumption, and interpretation. You say distance for safety, but evidence indicates you were at gatherings during the same time period. You protest Christine did things on her own, but offer no evidence of offers to help. Monetarily or emotionally, the court perceives your absence as convenient, not circumstantial. And that is what will be included in the final verdict." Christine let her head drop for a split second. Not to cry, to breathe. To give herself the smallest victory for Ysabel. For each evening she sat beside her daughter alone, hoping someone would care enough to telephone. Kody opened his mouth once more. "I didn't think I was obligated to justify myself before a court regarding something as intimate as a family choice." The judge raised an eyebrow. "That is where you are wrong, Mr. Brown. You chose a family arrangement that demanded public accountability the moment you put it on television for profit. You created a brand of being a present dad. Now we're just holding that brand up to the reality." The words sting worse than any gavel ever could. Kody clenched his jaw and turned away. "You are distorting this." Christine leaned in, voice low but firm. "Nobody's distorting it, Kody. We're just demonstrating what has always been real. When things got tough, you disappeared. And you left your daughter behind." The judge clicked his folder once. "My official ruling will be made in full next session, but for the sake of today's proceedings, I am directing a financial audit of all minor children's healthcare payments by Mr. Brown during the last 5 years. If this pattern follows, you can be held to retroactive payment and official assessment of parental responsibilities." The room gasped, not loudly but enough. Robyn closed her eyes. Kody remained still. Christine straightened, however, not victorious, simply firm. The word audit hung in the courtroom like a silent warning. It wasn't merely technical legalese. It was a trigger, a change, a disruption to the very carefully constructed image Kody Brown had built on 10 years of reality television, press junkets, and public statements of solidarity. But it wasn't TLC. This was life, real law. And for once, the story wasn't being told in his favor. Christine didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just sat there, like a woman who'd waited much too long for a system to finally pay attention to what she'd borne in silence. The judge's decree wasn't about the money at all. It was a crack in the armor, an official recognition that this wasn't an isolated failure. This was an ongoing thing, and it had to be looked into. Kody shifted awkwardly in his seat. "An audit, that is absolutely unnecessary. I've taken care of my kids." Christine shifted her body toward him slowly. "Prove it," she said. "Not to me, to the court. Produce the bank statements, the bills, the support records, because I've got mine." She clicked a folder in front of her. "Every penny, every receipt, every hospital meal I had, so she could have an additional physical therapy session." The judge held up a hand. "Eno, this is not a parental debate. This is procedure, and it will continue as such. Mr. Brown, your account books will be scrutinized for the next 30 days. Discrepancies regarding healthcare, education, or emotional damages associated with Ysabel's treatment will be discussed in the final hearing." Robyn leaned forward to whisper once more, but Kody did not turn his head. His gaze was locked straight ahead, his face impassive, equal measures of anger and terror. Christine was composed, her tale was told. Now it was the numbers that would testify. Because emotions can be denied, but ledgers don't lie. And under the microscope of fatherhood, the truth is either on the paper trail or not. Janelle stood up at last from her chair. "Your Honor, if I might make a short statement." Everyone in the courtroom leaned forward. The judge nodded once. "Proceed, Miss Brown." Janelle moved to the middle of the room, knuckles knotted together in front of her. "I did not intend to say anything today, but hearing all of this morning, reading over the papers, I think I have to say something, both as Ysabel's mother figure and as someone who lived within that family." She spoke straight at Kody. "You did not miss a surgery. You missed 100 little details leading up to it. The appointments, the crying, The evenings Christine and I spent huddled together struggling to pay for what insurance wouldn't cover. Her voice broke. I was with Ysabel when she asked if her dad didn't care because he was too busy, and I didn't know how to respond without a lie. Kody's fists were clenched. You are siding with her now too. Janelle turned back at him with an intensity that could not be swayed. There is no side. There is just what occurred, and we all witnessed it, Kody. We just quit saying it aloud. The judge leaned forward. This testimony, although unofficial, will be entered into evidence as part of today's proceeding. I suggest no more interjections until closing arguments. Meri remained motionless. She hadn't uttered a word, but her eyes, red, rimmed and pinned on Kody, spoke volumes. Robyn had waited long enough to break her silence. He is not a monster. He made a decision to defend our home. That is it. Christine refused to look at her. Then he should have told Ysabel that in person, not take cover under protection, when what he meant was quiet. The courtroom hung suspended. One shared breath held fast, and for the first time during the proceedings, Kody's voice fell. Not hot, not defensive, but nearly shattered. I believed she'd get it. I did, really, Christine whispered. She did, at least, for a little while. But then she matured and realized what it was. The room had become heavier with each hour. Not noisier, but heavier. The kind of weight that accumulates when people no longer pretend. Kody settled back in his chair, no longer protesting, no longer posturing. For the first time he appeared older, not in years, but in truth, like the years of carefully orchestrated avoidance had finally caught up to him in the worst way possible. With his own child's heartbreak held up as evidence, the judge cleared his throat. We're nearing the conclusion of testimony. At this point, the court invites closing statements if either party wishes to address the emotional aspect of these proceedings before final recommendations are drafted. Christine's attorney nodded toward her. She slowly stood up, not on fire, but on determination. She walked towards the bench, looking at it, hands by her sides. Your Honor, I didn't come here to shame Kody. I came here to stand up for Ysabel's truth, because for years it wasn't safe to say it. We were taught to smile on camera, to keep the facade of unity going. But in the shadows, we were suffering. She was hurting. Christine's voice softened. I watched my daughter go through the most painful procedure of her life, and the one person who could have made her feel like she wasn't alone disappeared. Not physically, emotionally, spiritually. As a father, and I can't change what happened, but I can make sure it's never rewritten. She turned toward Kody, locking eyes. You don't have to love me. You don't even need to like me, but you owed her more than silence, more than excuses. You owed her presence, and now you owe her the truth. Because absence isn't just walking away, it is standing by and letting someone suffer and having your comfort be more important. Christine took a step back, eyes brimming with tears but unflinching. The judge nodded toward Kody. Mr. Brown, you may say something if you would like. This is your chance to bring clarity or regret, if you are so inclined. Kody stood up slowly. The courtroom observed as he struggled to get his footing, not only with words, but with himself. I thought I was doing what was right, he said. I thought keeping my family safe meant keeping my distance. I didn't know how much she needed me. His voice broke a little. I thought Christine would deal with it. She always did everything. I took it for granted. I realize that now. He hesitated. But I am not a monster. I didn't intend to hurt her. Christine didn't say anything. She merely observed, silent, strong. If I could do it over, I'd show up, Kody stated. I'd be there, even though it terrified me, because not showing up cost more than I thought it would. It cost me her trust. And perhaps her love. The judge nodded, expression impassive. And do you intend to discuss this with the minor child in so many words? Kody hesitated. Yes, I will, Christine mouthed under her breath. She is not a minor anymore. But she didn't voice it loudly enough for the court, only loudly enough for her heart to recognize. The judge glanced down at his papers. This court will make preliminary written recommendations in a week's time. Monetary audits will proceed as directed. All parties are hereby directed to desist from commenting on this case publicly or in the media. Kody's face tightened at that. Undefinite, the silence wasn't legal, it was personal. Undefined the stage was gone. Undefined all that was left was accountability. Undefined Christine slid back into her seat, her folder lighter now, its weight no longer hers alone to carry. Meri reached over and touched her shoulder. Janelle whispered, "You did it!" Christine did not smile. But her eyes told the truth. Not victory, not vengeance, just freedom. The closing minutes of the hearing did not conclude in fireworks or yelling. They concluded with a pen gliding across paper, a judge's robes sweeping against wood, and the ring of hard realities finally voiced aloud. When the bailiff ordered and spectators slowly rose, no one made a mad dash for the door. This was not a courtroom that cleared fast. This was a holy judgment, and nobody cared to be the first to exit its wake. Christine sat still, holding onto the table's edge as if letting go would compromise the resolve she had been gathering all morning. Kody, seated across from her, had yet to stand. He resembled a man stripped bare, denuded of charm, denied control of narrative. Merely a dad who had made a decision, and now must live in the shadow of its aftermath. The judge rose to his feet. This court will file a written opinion into the public record within 7 business days. In the meantime, all supplemental materials should be filed through counsel. Miss Brown, you may proceed with your audit tracking with the aid of the court. Mr. Brown, failure to comply may result in further penalties. Gavel, final absolute. A chapter closed. But as people rose to leave, Christine did something unexpected. She walked over to Kody, not in anger, not for show, just one final gesture. She held out the letter from Ysabel again. "I'm not giving this to the court. I'm giving it to you. It's yours to read, or ignore, but it's the last time I'll ask." Kody looked up slowly, then took the letter without a word. She turned and left, head held high, folder tucked under her elbow, no longer a shield, but a record of battle endured. Because some court cases don't just divide possessions, they reveal the cost of silence, the burden of betrayal, and the price of arrival too late. Also outside the courtroom, the sky was gray, full of thick gray clouds, as if the universe itself knew the mood. Janelle and Meri trailed behind, positioning themselves beside Christine, like former sisters turned guards who now took their proper place at her side. Photographers lined the entrance of the courthouse, but were kept at bay with silence. Christine would not give a statement. No cameras. One big breath. One breath won. Within, Kody sat alone. Robyn had exited through another door. The letter was open on the table now. Ysabel's words were there in blue pencil. At the end, a lone line had been circled in pencil. "I needed you to be my dad, and you weren't." No gavel could echo louder than that.